I'm not sure if you can hear that sound, but the air is full of bees and it's a wonderful thing. We're going to check on our 3 colonies that all started with one nuke last year, but I thought I'd do just a refresher course on, before we get to them, just on how to light a smoker, how we light a smoker, and that is just paper and burlap. And a good place to find burlap bag, I mean, you can go to feed stores, different places, but coffee roasters is a really great place because they always have beans. This is just old bag that hadn't burned yet. It was left in the smoker. And by the way, it's a common thing in beekeeping that your smoker starts burning its best when you least need it. So just know that's just kind of a unspoken rule in beekeeping, it seems. You know, you'll be fighting with your smoker, and right when you're about to go home, then it'll be perfectly lit. There we go. So let's go take a peek here. These are some of our splits which have our breeder queen daughters in them, which I am really, hang on here, I parked my truck so that, actually let's go throw my hood on here real quick. Let's take a peek inside first and then I'll set that camera up. And really the thing I'm looking for is just, do they need room? These ones are, let's see here. This here, I can see the bees are peeking through the frames. And all I'm going to do is just pull a frame from the middle where there's the most bees. Alright, that should work. And all I'm going to do is just check and see what their progress is as far as are they drying this frame out? What are they up to? Once again, always remember when pulling frames that you want to pull them without rolling them this way or that way, because you crush bees, you roll them. And this, they're actually up here laying. Let's see if I can get out of the way of the sun here and give you a good, they got larvae in there. And you know, another thing to take notice of is there's a lot of brood milk in the larvae that are hatched. There's also eggs there as well. And the reason I'm focusing on that and what I'm referring to is that milky substance that the larvae are laying in. The more resources that are available to the bees, I'm gonna put this back. The more resources that are available to the bees, the more of that brood food that they produce. So that's also another way of kind of reading how they're doing resource-wise. People ask me, you know, all the time, should I still be feeding my bees or what have you? Here's a great way to check, especially if you haven't had feed on your bees for a while. If you're still seeing that, you realize that they're pulling resources from the field pretty well. This one doesn't need a super yet. Still a lot of empty space, but it's one of those things. We'll come back in about a week and a half and check them. But otherwise, we obviously know there's a laying queen and that she's doing her thing. So close that one up, and let's go to the neighbor hive here. This one is definitely looking a bit fuller, but they also had drawn out frames to start with, so that's kind of cute little bee. Make sure you pet your bees. Yeah. Okay, let's pull a frame here. See what we're looking at. Give your bees a smoke, helps them relax. Also helps people relax sometimes. And what I do, you know, I mean, ideally, you want to pull a frame from the side here, especially if you've got 10 frames and they've got a bunch of propolis and everything. You want to pull a side frame, and then that gives you room to move. I'm kind of cheating here a bit, but I'm also, if I do pull a frame that's further in, I'm looking for a frame that doesn't have a bunch of burr comb or what have you. And this one here has foundation still. They may have started drying out a little bit, but I know I can easily pull it without crushing a bunch of bees. And then usually what I do, I just lay this on the ground this way, just against the hive or even against my leg. Whoops. And there's a perfect example of, here, let's do a close-up. If a bee stings you like that, see that stinger hive tool? Just scrape it out. Just that easy. That's the best thing to do. Okay, so really, I mean, with this one here, now look at that. That's fresh nectar. They're pulling that out from the fields. I bet this one will have brood. Yeah, look at that, cat brood. So they're building up. We split these bees, and so personally, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a bit of excess honey off of them. But, you know, and this is something that you need to consider, even though we're kind of too late in the year if you've already like started to make splits or that. We're gonna close this up, they're fine. But something you need to consider is there's a fine line between, you know, if you split for increase or try to make increase, that's going to have an effect on your honey production. And if you focus on honey production, that's obviously going to have a effect on how much you can split your bees. So you kind of just have to go in with a plan of what you're wanting to accomplish. What I mean is you go into the year kind of with a plan of what you're wanting to accomplish. Okay, so here again, I'm seeing where they're building out a bit of comb. I can see white. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can kind of see that. It's white wax, white wax. So they obviously don't need more room yet. But this is actually, you know, now that I'm talking about it, this is actually one that had that virgin queen that we released. So I'm seeing drone brood, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she mated successfully, because drones are a result of an unfertilized egg. So it could be her, and it could just be drone cells from her laying, or it could be that she didn't mate successfully and is laying drones, or it could even be that she died and workers are laying drones. So that doesn't necessarily answer our question. And so what I'm seeing here is that this is just a crappy frame. This is all, let me see here. Put this tripod down, I'll try to point out. This is all drones here. You can see just it's raised, and then there's regular brood. So the good news is obviously is that she's laying and laying well. However, this is a frame that I'm going to want to replace. And what we could do is actually just take this frame and slowly but surely work it to the outside. And what I mean slowly but surely is, like, say every week you can come back and move it over one space, move it over one space, move it until you get to the end, and then eventually you can pull it when all of the brood is hatched out of it and everything. So I'm not going to, one more manipulation, I've mentioned it before, but it's worth noting, is that if you are starting off with new frames, new foundation, it takes a lot of energy on the bee's part, and so they're always a bit reluctant to draw out comb. So as your bees draw out comb, you can start taking frames from the outside and moving them in one space. So say I take this frame and look to see where the bees are drawing. Okay, so they're drawing out to this one. This actually is another example. And look at that. Isn't that interesting? That's a swarm cell. We're going to destroy that. The reason I find that really interesting is that this colony already tried to swarm once, but Okay, hang on, let me do one thing at a time here. Scrape off your burr comb, scrape it back down to the foundation. No, anyways, getting back to the swarm thing. Now that we've seen that, we've got a queen that's laying well. Now I'm actually really curious to go through each frame and shake the bees off and look for more. And just to be on the safe side, I'm going to use my hive tool and scrape all this burr comb off too. One of the reasons, and this is a key thing to know, one of the reasons that bees will swarm sometimes is some bees would actually rather swarm than draw out. She's got a beautiful pattern, like she's laying well, but some bees would rather swarm than actually build out new foundation. And so that's something to be aware of. Whoops. Yeah, I mean, she's got a beautiful, beautiful pattern that's emerging. But I think, if I had to guess, I think the reason that they may have had that swarm cell, once again, just scraping off this burr comb, is because of the foundation. Some bees, I'm sure, just scrape it off, it's clean. I'm sure many of you have found out already that every hive, to one extent or another, has its own personality to it. And some hives just have a proclivity towards wanting to swarm. This seems to be one of those, which, you know, obviously leaves us with the option of either micromanaging them to make sure they don't swarm, or you can requeen them, you know, whatever. There's a few different options, but I just find that very interesting. They would have a queen cell that well developed. But I mean, look at this. This is a beautiful, you know, another thing we, oh, and you know what? While there's this drone brood, here is a really, really great opportunity. Whenever you pull boxes apart like that, you have drone brood, take your hive tool and look for varroa. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to see whether you have any varroa issues. Now, we were really on top of our treatment this year. And for those of you wondering, we have a treatment schedule that we follow. There's some people who will treat only if they see varroa levels reach a certain level, but we have found it way better to just treat on a schedule, just to be consistent, to make sure that our whole apiary is kind of on the same page. Anyway, I'm not gonna go searching for more cells, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of some options of what you can do if you find cells like that. I mean, another thing that we could do is actually take a couple of these frames out and move them into the top, and take some of the partially drawn frames and put them down there, because chances are pretty good. I mean, just even from what we're seeing here, they're pretty packed. They've got a really good population. That new virgin queen seems to be laying well, and so it may just be an issue of them just needing some more space. It'll be really nice. The blackberries look like they're probably about a week or so away from blooming, and it'll be really, really nice when they open up and just get the bees in the flow and get them going on that. So smoke them down again before putting that box on it. You want to minimize crushing bees, and obviously, I mean, I've got a sentimental streak of not wanting to crush my girls, but there's also a couple of really good practical reasons. The one reason being that you know, whenever you crush bees, it releases alarm pheromones, which works up the other bees. And then secondly, whenever you crush bees, they use, obviously, their mouth to clean up whatever's been crushed. And if you have any kind of viral issues going on with your bees, they obviously that helps spread those issues throughout the hive. So a couple of really good reasons to keep from crushing bees. I'm just looking over the apiary here. I love what I'm seeing. Bees are flying really well. If I had to guess, I think a lot of this front activity is actually from the virgin queens probably going on their first orientation and or mating flights. Because we gave these cells probably about, I don't know, six days or so ago, and it's been cold and rainy. This is really the first good break of the weather that we've had for them to be able to go out and mate. So we'll see how they do. Anyways, catch you later.